I mentioned this very briefly earlier on. I mentioned the quick selection tool, and I really wanted to try and work it in here for you some way, somehow. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move over into my pile of parts, and I'm going to zoom in on, see we have this sort of curved, it's actually a curved rusty piece of chrome, and there's also a nut right beside them. So I want to zoom in on these two objects here. This is the example that I'm going to give you here. There we go, something like that. Now, the quick selection tool, go ahead and grab him out of the toolbox. He's hidden now underneath the magic wand tool. And the quick selection tool, as the name would imply, allows you to create really fast, accurate selections. So I really have saved the best for last here. This guy is literally going to let us paint a selection. Okay, so if you're familiar with Photoshop's paintbrush tool, for instance, or if you've used painting tools in other applications, exactly the same idea, except now we're going to be painting with marching ants. So it's sort of the same as the Magic Wand tool in terms of making a selection based on color, but we're not going to be single clicking and setting tolerance values and things like that. Instead, we're going to be painting with a paintbrush. The example that I want to give you is this curved, rusty piece of chrome here. So what I can do is I can literally click and begin dragging with my mouse, and the colors that I move over top of with the crosshair in the middle of the tool then get sampled throughout the object, right? So I can literally paint on this selection in a matter of seconds. Okay, so in a matter of seconds, I have the entire object selected. So what I want to do here, though, is I, of course, want to show you a little bit more detail with this guy. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect Controller Command D, and it really is the nut, the square nut over on the right-hand side that I want to select. So I'm going to zoom in on this guy, and we want to try and select him using the Quick Selection tool. But notice the size of the brush is maybe a little bit too large for our object here. So what I can do is I can bring my cursor up to the options bar, and we actually have this brush size drop down menu or drop down window. So what I can do here is I can increase or decrease the size of the quick selection brush. And if I want to get a sense of how large my brush is, I can just bring it back over the canvas area. Maybe I'll decrease this guy a fair amount, maybe down to about 20 pixels, maybe even a little bit smaller, something like that. Okay, the hardness, so that's going to be the edge hardness on my brush. Maybe I want a soft edged brush or a hard edged brush. I'm going to leave the default there. And also the spacing, I can set spacing for this guy, as well as angle and roundness. But really for our purposes here, we're really much more interested in the size for our brush. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and collapse that window. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to start painting my selection. And you know what? I single clicked there and bang, right away, I got the entire object with a single mouse click. Holy cow, that went fast. I'm going to deselect. I'm going to try that one more time. Just single clicking on this guy. Look at that. The whole thing gets selected. It doesn't really matter what size your brush size is set to. We got the whole thing in one shot, which is really, really nice. Now, what about the center object? What about the hole in the middle of the nut? Well, we already know that we can hold down Alt or Option to subtract from a selection. So notice when I hold down Alt or Option, the crosshair in the middle of my brush cursor changes to a minus. Single click, and that will knock a hole in the square nut for you. Okay, let's go and position this guy over onto our mechanical face. I'm just going to zoom out here, and really, we've done this a whole bunch of times already. What I'm going to do is tap the V key on my keyboard, and that, of course, switches me over to the Move tool, and I'll drag this guy over. Now, what I want to do with this guy is I actually want to kind of add corners to my mouth, if this is even going to be possible here. So maybe something like that. I'm going to hold down Alt or Option and duplicate this guy out like this. And then what I'll do is I'll use my free transform, Controller Command T, holding down Shift, and I'll just scale this guy down just a little bit, something like that. And let's see, I think I'll continue repositioning this guy. I want to move him out just a little bit. I'm not sure if I like that or not. I'm not sure I'm 100% convinced. Check this out though. I'm going to grab my freehand lasso tool just by tapping the L key on my keyboard. Now make sure you're not on any of your other lasso tools. You want your freehand lasso tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to quickly draw out a rough selection around these two guys to move both of them in one shot, something like that. I think. Let me just zoom out and see how I like that. I'm not sure if I'm liking that or not. I'm going to go ahead and deselect. I think that'll be okay. I think I'm going to live with it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, once again, with the lasso tool, tapping the L key on my keyboard, I'll go ahead and grab these guys, right? Select them there. Back to the move tool, V, holding down Alt or Option. I'm going to duplicate them out, something like this, over here somewhere. And then, of course, we need to flip them. Edit, and then down to Transform, and then flip horizontal, something like this, and then simply reposition them in and around there somewhere. Okay, I'm not sure that I like that completely, but maybe I'll spend a little bit of time fiddling here. Maybe I'll angle these nuts a little bit more and maybe bring them closer together, something like that, just to make them look more like what I was after was sort of a wide happy face or wide smiley face. But anyway, much more importantly than my robot head is the selection tools. I feel like I really ran you through a lot of different techniques, a lot of different options for you related to working with the selection tools inside Photoshop. And really, again, creating selections is one of the most important aspects of Photoshop. So I hope you had fun, and I hope you learned a lot too.